My name is Rusty Burge, and I'm here today with Vic Firth to talk about basic vibraphone pedaling. The pedal is one of the things that separates the vibraphone from other mallet instruments, and we want to really learn to use that pedal to its fullest extent. And I think some beginning students, when they first come to the instrument, they're a little uneasy of the pedal, so several things happen that we want to kind of discourage and move in a certain direction. So we're going to talk about a few of those today. One is, when a student first starts playing the vibraphone, a lot of times the pedal ends up being a little bit like a light switch. In other words, it's either all the way on or all the way off. So they're actually pushing the pedal all the way to the ground and then letting it all the way up. So sometimes that actually just, as you can see, you can hear a sound. So then that's actually even worse if somebody's actually using it to keep the beat, which I've actually heard quite a few times. So somebody might be playing something and they're going. So you get as much noise from the pedal hitting the ground and the frame noise of the instrument as you do the actual notes played. So we want to figure out how to make that motion a lot shorter, and we don't need all that. So one particular way of doing this is to keep the damper bar a little closer to the bars and to adjust your weight distribution. So you put a little weight on your back foot, and then what you can do is just put the pedal down just a little bit. You don't need that whole range, and then the damper bar stays very close to the actual bar, allowing you to have a ringing note just like that, or to have a short note just like that as you choose. So like I said, a little bit more weight on your back foot, and then you just can put a little bit of weight on the pedal and it doesn't go all the way to the ground. As far as the actual pedal height on the ground, I usually like to have it a couple inches from the ground. If you put it too high, once again, you're going to run into kind of a balance issue, because if it's really high, then you're going to start to feel like you're going to fall over. So this particular pedal is a couple inches from the ground. That gives me enough. I can lift up my foot kind of on the on the heel of my foot, and then I can just very comfortably push down on the pedal without having to reach or do anything like that. So a couple inches from the ground is usually the optimum height. So when you're trying to minimize this pedal motion, you can practice a couple things, and to hear it, in other words, if I go ahead and demonstrate by pushing the pedal all the way to the ground, then you'll hear a big gap in between each note. Okay, so that's kind of what we want to try to avoid, to play a little smoother, a little more legato. So each vibraphone is a little bit different, but you find the place on that particular instrument where the note just barely rings, and you can just do that by kind of basically going up to the instrument and just trying to hit a few notes. So, okay, so I need to push it down a little bit more. Okay, so I found where it rings. Now that may not actually be even all the way up on some older instruments or instruments that have been through a lot of wear and tear, but usually on most newer instruments it should be fairly even. So what I'm going to try to do is just play a simple C major scale and try to connect the notes as much as possible. You do actually have to figure out each vibraphone. When I started, the first C left a little bit of space in between that I wasn't quite expecting, because I'm not totally used to this instrument. So practicing on the instrument is very important to kind of understand each instrument is a little teeny bit different. Like I said, some older instruments can be really uneven. You can have a note that rings here where the pedal is down and not up here. This particular instrument is pretty even, but I still even then have to find the intricacies of each note. But that's going to allow you to then connect things a lot when you're playing music. If you're playing in a band or an orchestra, it's going to allow you to connect your ideas much easier, and you're not going to have that big hole in the middle of that. You're going to minimize the motions down here so you don't have the pedal going all the way to the ground and making noise or doing anything with the weight on your back foot. I have a way of describing this to my students, because sometimes I think we're more used to working with our hands than we are our feet. Feet are a little more clumsy because we use our hands for everything we do every day. So if you think about playing a triangle, in a band or orchestra piece. So you're holding the triangle up, and let's say you've got a long triangle part and you're going to keep playing for a while. Well, after a while, that triangle is going to kind of start to build up, excuse me. So after the triangle builds up, you have to kind of think about, okay, I've got a half rest, I'm going to take a little bit of that. But very rarely would you go ding, 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 would you grab it all the way and mute it. You would actually take one of your fingers down and just barely mute it so that you take out some of the fog of the sound. Okay? Now, of course, that's not like if you're playing a samba or, you know, a world percussion thing, then maybe that's the kind of sound that you want. But we're talking about in a normal kind of ensemble like a band or orchestra. So that idea is that you're not going to grab the whole triangle because that's just going to sound really strange. So if we think about kind of using that same idea here, is that we're going to just put the pedal up and have the damper touch just as much as we need. So I don't need it all the way down there. I can have it right there, and then I'm ready to go. So if I want to play an idea, you know, whether it's written out music, I could play a whole note, quarter note, whatever duration I needed, I'm right there ready to go. In improvisation, this is actually imperative because you don't know what you're going to do all the time. You're kind of creating at the moment. So I want the ability to be able to play a longer note exactly when I want it to go away exactly when I want it to go away. So for example, if I improvise something, I play this game with myself sometimes. I just want a note to ring. And I'm not going to choose where that is. I'm just going to see what happens. So. So they're just kind of seeing what happens. I say now, I want a note to ring. Now I want it to not to. So the idea that I'm putting that pedal down just a little bit gives me that ability to go for those long notes, then quickly get rid of them if I want. Another thing is I very rarely play with the pedal all the way. I never usually stand like this and play. Because even when you're just playing moving passages, again, whether that's written out or whether you're playing jazz, if you press the pedal down just ever so slightly, it takes the pressure off the damper bar and does not push up on the bar. So then you have a sound that's a little bit more full in general, and you're even not going for a ringing note. So for instance, if I play without anything, the other thing is you get a little more frame noise that way too. I'm going to put the pedal down just a little bit. So you have to, again, experiment with each vibraphone because everyone's a little bit different. I just met this instrument today, so I'm still kind of figuring out what this damper pedal means. And if you've got an older instrument that's really been pushed across a lot of door jams or has been through a lot of marching wars, then you're really going to have to kind of figure out, because sometimes it could be even. You know, everybody's tried a vibraphone once where a note here rang, but it didn't up here. So you have to kind of figure each instrument out a little bit. Hopefully, if it's in good shape, it's pretty even, but it's never really going to be perfect. So you figure out what the dimensions of that instrument are, and then you have to kind of account for that. This process is very important whether you're playing a piece or whether you're learning how to improvise, because it allows you to create a lot less motion, and the pedal actually becomes what it was designed for, to help you sustain notes and to help you dampen notes, to really go to be able to play exactly what's written on the page. And I think, like I said, that really separates it from the other mallet percussion instruments. So give this pedaling a try and see what you think.